Ooh, sorry about the late start time, folks. Today in particular, I've been running around like a headless chicken. Just started my new gig, so I've been trying to run around, make enough money to get into the office. I'm going to be Ubering later, so it's just a whole thing, man. But here we are nonetheless. Let me get the stream set up. Finally going live. Wonder if I should take off the stream. I don't know if I'm jiving with this overlay. I got to be honest. I've been trying to make better and better overlays. But I feel like the one that I made does tend to kind of take up a lot of the screen. But anyways, we got an hour to talk everything combat sports related. We got some PFL news. We've got the KSI controversy I want to get into, I want to cover. You guys let me know what you want to see first. I'm going to let everyone flood in real quick. I'm just going to go grab my iPhone charger. I'll be right back. So don't go anywhere. Oh. Alrighty, we're back. We are back. We are back. We are back. Myself a little bit more color here. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay. Who is in the chat? Who do we got in the chat? We could start off talking about the PFL. Ngannou, the PFL. I think that's a great move for them, for Ngannou in general. Although I do think that PFL got the better end of the deal. I do think so. But I think it's awesome. We can go through what Ngannou was asking for as part of the deal here. Asking points for the deal. Okay. So we've got let me just see. Trying to pull up the details for the deal here. All right. Trying to find the actual graphic because I know there's a graphic. All right. I know he asked, so he's going to head up the PFL Africa wing. Which I think it's also cool that, by the way, the PFL is going to all these different places. For instance, they have a Europe wing, they have an Africa wing. I think that's awesome. But point is, Francis Ngannou is going to be heading up the PFL Africa part of the promotion. He also wants his opponents to be getting paid in the millions for each fight that he has. It's a multi-fight deal. On top of that, I know he wants PFL deal. Here we go. He wants equity in the company. Right. Here it is. Because I honestly, it's good that he's giving his opponents millions because they're going to probably get absolutely murdered in there. So it's him, his opponents get millions for each fight. I think I don't know if it's yet to be seen if he's going to be part of that whole super fight deal, the same deal that Jake Paul is going to be a part of, where Jake's only going to really fight on those pay-per-view cards. If you're bringing in a guy like Francis Ngannou, I think logic would stand to reason that he would be a part of that wing. But there's also another part of me, and I was thinking about this in the car ride the other day, that thinks that when you have a guy like Francis Ngannou come into your promotion, it could be multifaceted. All right. He also gets to box. That's the other part of the deal. So he may have a tune-up fight in boxing in 2023. I could show you this. This is on Bleacher Report. Okay. Here it is. PFL Africa is the thing that gets him the most pumped up, and that PFL's values align with his in terms of building the sport in the region. Super duper cool, by the way. He may have a tune-up fight in boxing. That's right. He can still box. That's another great part of the deal for him in 2023, and he hopes to face Deontay Wilder in 2024. There's been talks with the money team. He'll be keeping his eyes on the PFL heavyweight tournament, and the winner could be a candidate for his first fight. So it seems like he's not fighting in the regular PFL type tournaments where they have guys fighting for millions, which would mean that he is probably going the way of a Jake Paul in that he will be fighting in those super fight type of pay-per-view events. And I'll get to my thoughts on that in a second. But let's go over the rest of this for now. The PFL has offered to pay Ngannou's opponent a minimum base purse of $2 million. Ngannou did not want to face an opponent but was not paid what they deserve. See, that's the thing. He knows he's going to absolutely spark someone. And he's going, listen, these guys better be getting paid a lot because I'm going to absolutely demolish who's ever in there with me. Ngannou didn't want to, he wants to see fighters be rewarded. He wants the best possible opponent. That also goes with his negotiation talks with the UFC before he left. That's kind of a credit towards Ngannou in a big way. I think a lot of people thought that he was all talk when he left the UFC. Oh yeah, he says he cares about fighter equity, but he doesn't really care about fighter equity. That right there should show you all you need to see about his actual real intentions. He kind of wants to be, and I'm not saying that there's not an aspect of ego in there for him, because I'm sure he wants to be the guy that's going to say, hey, I can build up other fighters as well as my own platform. So I'm sure part of him wants to be that guy where he's a ambassador for the sport. He's a larger figure in the sport because he helps out so many fighters. He wants to be that guy with his name in the history books. But still, it's a good there's a good byproduct from that, you know? That's the classic philosophical debate, you know, whether someone's intentions are good or the outcome is good. You know, a lot of people like to debate the morality of all of that, you know, but it's still, whether he wants to be remembered in history as the guy that got a lot of fighters, you know, more equity, and that's the reason he does it, or he just simply wants more fighters to get paid better. It's still a good outcome, right? So net positive. He says he's still down to fight John Jones. If that could get worked out, that's never going to get worked out. If it was up to him, his next opponent would be Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder. So it seems like the PFL, and this is why I say it's very smart for them. Let's break this down bit by bit. Because I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place here. I'm kind of stumbling my words. It's been a hectic day, but let me sit into this. I think, first and foremost, let's talk about PFL's end of the deal. Fantastic for them. One of the probably the best deals they could have cut. They get a guy in Ngannou who I've said this before. I don't think he's the biggest draw outside of the cage. He doesn't need to be. His fighting kind of speaks for itself. They get a big star that was the heavyweight king of the UFC before he left, right? They also get the buzz of the residual kind of talks from the John Jones fight. Everyone's paying attention to Francis right now, and yet it's negative attention, but it's still attention nonetheless. They get the buzz there. They get a guy who's going to be able to now build up their platform in a big way, in the same way that Jake Paul is. So it's another big landmark signing for them. Unpoppable Balloons, welcome to the chat, my friend. You're the only one in here at current, but it's good to see you. We're discussing, of course, I'm sure you've been in here since the beginning, but we're discussing the Francis Ngannou deal with the PFL. So they have another guy that's on the level of a Jake Paul that they sign. Super duper good idea, I think. Boom, you get another guy in that level, and you also have guys, I'd say on the mid-tier level of stardom, or at least guys that were semi-stars. I don't want to say even stars, but crowd favorites from the UFC. So, like, I don't think that Sergio Pettis is still with the PFL. I can check that here. I know I think both Pettis brothers are in the PFL at current. Right? Let's see. My computer's being a little bit slow today. It's not like I paid $4,000 for a fast-running computer so I could edit and do all these different things. So he's fighting at flyweight, and he's still going to be... This is a PFL matchup. Oh, excuse me. No, his brother's in... Oh, no, wait. Oh, no. Next weight. Next fight. That's match 2. But I'm... Why do I think he's... Okay, so no, his brother is fighting in Bellator. But I know that they have... Anthony Pettis. Let me just see. Or they did. I know because I went to the whatchamacallit card. Anthony Pettis. I went to the MSG card where he fought Stevie Ray. That was his last time out. Yeah, and he lost. He lost via decision. So I was at this card right here. I went to the PFL playoffs at MSG. And I don't think he's there at current, but it's still, I want to make this point. Guys like him, the PFL is also smart for signing. Guys like him, Hurricane Shane Burgos, mid-level guys that are still kind of crowd draws in the UFC. PFL says, hey, once the UFC lets you go, we'll pick you up. Don't even worry about it. Boom, right there. We've got ourselves an Anthony Pettis, right? We've got ourselves Hurricane Shane Burgos. We've got ourselves, I'm sure there's ex-UFC fighters, because I know there's more fighters that have signed. Obviously, there's Francis Ngannou. Fabricio Verdum, they have, which could be a nice foil for Francis Ngannou once Francis gets there. They also have I think they have, not Adriano Moraes, because he just fought Mighty Mouse and won. Anthony Pettis, Clay Collard, Olivier Aubin-Mercier, He was kind of one of George St. Pierre's proteges. Rory McDonald, I saw him fight live. Excuse me. Fabricio Verdum. All these guys, right? And so you sign some of these dudes from the UFC, and you get what I'm talking about is mid-level talent. Mid-level talent that are also draws. I don't want to say talent, because all those guys are very talented fighters, but mid-level draws to kind of act as foils. So to understand what I'm saying, like, say Fabricio Verdum makes his way up the heavyweight rankings in PFL. Then he has a fight with Francis Ngannou. Very smart by them. It's also smart in that they get an ambassador, and this is, we'll talk about Francis Ngannou's end of the deal in a second, but it's also smart in that they get a guy that can be an ambassador to PFL Africa, right? I know they had Wade working on PFL Europe for a little bit. It's just all smart decisions like that will take them very, very far, right? My only problem with their end of the deal I also like the fact that they're so flexible in letting some of their biggest fighters do boxing, right? You don't want to lock them up. It can only kind of increase their star power if Francis Ngannou were to go and box other people. Obviously, Jake Paul's boxing other people now. He's going to be fighting Nate Diaz. We'll do a live watch along for that. So I think it's also cool that they're letting their guys go out and explore other options while still under contract. I think that's super duper cool. That's super duper innovative. That's something we've seen that before, where we've seen a version of that where there have been crossover fights. Never quite in that there have been contracts that allow certain star athletes from one promotion to go and maybe even switch sports. I don't think I've ever heard of or seen that in the fight game before. So innovative in terms of PFL's willingness to get out there and try new things. Awesome. The only issue I have is that if Francis Ngannou, if Jake Paul are going to only be fighting, which it seems like that's going to be the case, only going to be fighting in these super fight pay-per-views. My whole thing is that you also then have to do the math, if you're the PFL, about what you're going to do with your homegrown talent. And this is something that every single promotion, we talk about it all the time with influencer boxing, with MMA, with BKFC. I talked about it on the podcast. It's a tricky thing in where you want to bring in big names from other promotions, from other sports, whatever it is. But you also, I feel like, kind of have to toe that line where you're then, what's the best way I could say this? You're then having to make sure that these crossover stars or big signings can also help out your homegrown talent. So would I want to see Francis Ngannou fight, let's just say, Tyson Fury in an MMA fight? Because we have to think that could be a potential signing at some point. I know Tyson Fury has mentioned that he does want to get into MMA. Would that be smart for PFL? Absolutely. But what would make more sense, I feel, business-wise long-term, because it's a difference, right? Short-term, having Tyson Fury box Francis Ngannou is fantastic. It's a flash in the pan, but it's going to make you a lot of money. But realistically, you got to think, does Tyson Fury have a future in MMA? No. Already has all of his accolades, has a fantastic resume in boxing, will go down as undoubtedly one of the Hall of Famers in the sport. He's not going to be sticking around long in MMA. What would make a lot more sense long-term, and this is something that I don't know if they've necessarily considered yet, I could be wrong, is how they can utilize a piece that they bring in like Francis Ngannou to, as I said before, promote some of their own homegrown guys. So I took a look, and I know we still have it. Yeah, we still have it on the sports page. We can do the PFL rankings. The standings. So let's just say at a heavyweight, right? And we can maybe go into Jake's division where he'd be fighting at in a moment. You take a look at all these guys. I know of Maurice Green, and I'm trying to look at anyone else here. Marcelo Nunes, I've heard of. Jorgen De Castro used to be fighting in the UFC. He's another guy that they picked up after the UFC let him go. Outside of that, I'm not really accustomed. I'm not really initiated with who the rest of these guys are. And that's no disrespect to them at all. I'm sure they're all, obviously, to be at the pinnacle of the sport, you have to be very, very good at what you do. So I'm sure they're all competent fighters. I'd want to see Francis Ngannou get in the mix there. But that's a tricky thing, right? How do you build up your homegrown stars with a Francis Ngannou, but also not have Francis Ngannou lose any of his name value? Because let's just say Francis gets interjected into the heavyweight standings at the beginning of the season. Because for anyone that doesn't know, that might be watching this in post balloons, I don't know if you know of this. The way they set it up in the PFL is it's almost like regular North American sports where they have standings. As you could see here, there's the qualifiers for the playoffs, and the winner gets $1 million. if Francis was entered into these standings, I think his stardom would take a little bit of a hit. I think we wouldn't be looking at him the same. So you do have to, in my personal opinion, give him the star treatment. For sure. You have to give him some of that star treatment. That's why I think the Super Fight League is a good spot for him. But I would like them to also figure out a way, and again, this is why I'm just talking about it. This is very much easier said than done. There's got to be a way for you to get a Dennis Goltsov, right? Or a Bruno Capoloza, a Maurice Green, a Jorgen De Castro if he's able to catch up to the qualifying, the top 4 qualification spots for the 2023 playoffs. There's got to be a way to kind of tie both of them in, or any of these guys in, to fighting Francis Ngannou. At least I think there should be. Now, you could make super fights all you want. You could have him, again, fight Tyson Fury. You could have him fight Deontay Wilder, go off box. But there also needs to be, for you to sweeten up your end of the deal, there also needs to be something that Francis can do for your fighters. Now, PFL Africa is a great example of that. He's going to be hit. But with your core, and I'm talking about the fighters, the divisions, and the established staff you have since the promotion has developed, there needs to be something that Francis can do for these guys. And how you do that, again, easier said than done. Maybe you have the guy that wins the playoffs fight Francis in a super fight. You have one of those super fights be something that the top 4 guys can compete in. I could think of something with the card structure there where the undercard or part of the main card is guys that have won the playoffs in past years. I'm just throwing out ideas. I thought it was interesting, kind of tender to think about. We could even go over to Jake's. Let's see. No, I want to go back to the standings here. Excuse me. So Jake fights at 180. There's not currently as welterweight, women's featherweight. So there's not a lot of divisions at current in the PFL. So we got to assume that Jake would be fighting at 170 if he went down to MMA. Maybe they'll make, I don't know, maybe it'll be like a catch weight for him. But for argument's sake, let's put him down at 170 for now. Because again, what we said, you want to make sure that these guys, Cedric Doumbé, who's a star from, by the way, the world of kickboxing, Shane Mitchell, all these guys get their shine. God, I'm on like the brink of choking this show. You want to make sure all these guys get their shine too. So would it be the same thing for Jake? Who does Jake go up against in MMA? Jake, it's interesting in that Francis has been a champion at the highest upper echelon level of the sport that he's chosen. So for him, it makes a little bit more sense for him to go off and fight boxing champions. For Jake, you couldn't sell that fight. I mean, you could probably actually sell that fight based off of how angry people would be that you made that fight in the first place, where they'd want to see Jake get exposed. You could maybe sell it that way, but a much better way to go about it, and a way that would make a whole lot more sense, is if you have Jake first fight a God, dude, that's such a hard name to pronounce. No offense. Magomed Magomedkerimov. I'm sure I just butchered that name. But if you have a Jake, listen, guy wins at 170 the entire thing, right? He goes to the playoffs, he wins the $1 million prize, and then on the next super fight, not the prelims, but the next super fight card, he's fighting Jake Paul. That's a good starting point for Jake. But again, why it's easier said than done is, would you get a lot of people to care about that fight? You might be able to sell some decent pay-per-view buys just based off of the fact that it's Jake's MMA debut. So that brings with it a lot of curiosity that might have kind of eroded a little bit in his boxing career. But then you do also have to find the names, right, to kind of compete with him at some point. And so that's the point I'm trying to make with this live stream, is that it's never going to be easy to kind of find someone when you're bringing in foreign talent to build up your homegrown talent. I think you need a guy that's going to be super duper. One of those guys, like a Salt Poppy for Misfits, a guy that's going to be off the charts in terms of talent, in terms of fight sign, or in building up a fight, in terms of what's the word I'm looking for? In terms of charisma, a guy that's a star, like a McGregor-esque guy. You're going to get some leeway there with matching him up with Joe Schmo. For instance, the only reason I know who Marcus Brimage is because I believe he fought Conor in Conor's debut. I could check that here. Marcus Brimage versus Conor McGregor. That was his debut. So he fights Marcus Brimage in his debut, and Brimage gets a little bit of name value likeness off of that. But that's like the rarest example one could make. That's a very, very rare example of a guy who you could just put into a pond and he'll make it an ocean. And I hope you know what I mean when I say that. A guy that can build up the star of everyone that he faces up against. Come to think of it, Cedric Doumbé might not be a bad fight for Jake. Lightweight's a lot better. You got Clay Collard, Olivier Aubin-Mercier. You got Shane Hurricane Burgos. That's another signing from the UFC. So, I mean, I'm really interested to see where the PFL takes this. And I'm interested to see who they match up against Jake. That's going to be a super fun fight. What's crazy is I might be a little bit more excited for Jake's. Let me just check this in my head before I sound potentially stupid here. Yeah, I might be a little bit more excited for Jake's PFL debut than Francis Ngannou. Is that crazy to say? Maybe, but only because I have the beginnings of a stash. Rate the stash, dude. I'm also not tan. I just put a filter on this, and I got a little extra orange, I suppose. But what do we think? Where do we think that Jake Paul's going with this? With his MMA? Optics on the PFL deal with Jake Paul. Super duper healthy. I want to see more influencers do MMA. I think that'd be really cool. Because if it's anything like boxing and it develops to the point where we can get, I'm going to put my mic down a little bit. If it's anything like influencer boxing and we get to the point where we could build it up to where the athletes are competent, they're training, they look good, the production looks really, really good. That's fantastic for the sport of MMA. 10 out of 10 mustache. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's a little bit, you know what it's like? It's like the kelp mustache from SpongeBob that gets ripped off. Right now it's in its beginnings. So we got to build it up. But yeah, I think it's very. I think this PFL and Jake Paul collaboration is going to open up the gates for a lot more talent, for a lot more opportunity within the sport. And it might even have a ripple effect on boxing too, because if the PFL is letting Francis Ngannou box on the side, that's going to usher in some new talent as well. The first time around, we'll look sloppy AF, but we see if he takes MMA serious. Well, yeah, dude, that's the thing also. It's like I feel like this also makes sense. Just grab something. In the sense that we have a record of Jake Paul taking combat sports serious, right? It's not just like, and you might be right. It might be a little bit sloppy, but we also do know the approach that Paul takes to these types of things. And it's an approach that, hey, he works hard. He's always in the gym. He hones his craft. You can't ever say that about Jake Paul, that he's lazy. You can't. You just can't. Right? You might be able to say that he's annoying, he's dislikable, whatever. You could say anything else, but you can't say the man does not work hard. You can't say that he's not a good businessman. You can't say that he's not a good promoter because he knows how to promote fights. Is he awkward at times? Absolutely. But that's why I feel like, will it be perfect? Probably not. Say that outright. Will it be perfect? Most likely not. But I'm still excited to see it just because it's Jake Paul. I like to watch him. I know it's not the most, it's kind of almost like a guilty pleasure as a combat sports fan. I know it's not always going to be the most competent performance, but goddamn if I don't like tuning in and watching what he gets down to on a fight-by-fight basis. That's my favorite part. So I'm excited as an MMA guy. You know, I've always been an MMA guy before I've been a boxing guy. I'm excited to see what he brings to my native sport in a big way. And to see what Francis brings to the PFL. Like PFL Africa. Continent that the UFC really hasn't gone into yet in a big way. Does that give the UFC some competition? Does that make them kind of reevaluate where they're at with going into foreign places? UFC's been around Europe. Bellator's kind of more so in Europe at the moment. I know Vic was saying that on the podcast. But you talk about where the UFC's at most, it's always in America. Okay. So they have yet to really to foray into kind of Africa, into Asia in a big way. You know, there's a lot of places where the UFC really hasn't laid claim and laid stake that I feel like that's where the other promotions are picking up the slack. And it's given the UFC a little bit more competition. And competition always breeds ingenuity. So expect a better product across the board, even from Bellator, from ONE. PFL is emerging with these two signings as one of the best and brightest MMA promotions. You know? What else do we want to talk about this stream? Because I got to get out. I'm going to be doing some Ubering tonight. We got about 30 minutes left here. What do we want to talk about? We could watch KSI's. I know KSI released a video detailing how he feels about his elbow landing. We could always take a look at that. Do we want to take a look at that? Let's take a look at that. I'm going to call an audible. We'll review this, and then that'll probably be the end of the stream for today. Just because I got things I got to get done. I'm a busy man. I'm trying to load up the video here. Uno momento. Because I watched a little bit of it, and I got to be honest. Yikes. He goes, I don't feel like I landed an elbow. What does that mean? Either you did or you didn't. But nonetheless, let's check it out. Oops. Oh, I also gotta put on the cans. Hold on. 1 second. Let me not get the echo. Okay. All right. We're going to start this from the top.
KSI back from Misfits 007. What an event. Misfits, you know how it is. There's always big moments happening, whether it's good or bad.
Oh, the pay-per-view sales guy. Okay, we'll take a look at those. Oh, wow. 300K, $20. Same total as Temper, but KSI versus Temper was $40. And that's kind of also, and I'll just pause that real quick to talk about that point. That's also, I feel like, an indication that KSI knew this wasn't exactly going to be the fight that the Temper fight was, you know, in terms of being able to sell a fight like that. It wasn't going to have the same marketability, the same watchability. And I think we got our point proven. I mean, Joe was not hanging in there with KSI. I know in the video I said that I'd like to see a rematch. Listen, I watched that fight back, and I must have been smoking crack or something when I recorded that video. I don't know what I was talking about. It's tough in that Joe looked like he couldn't hang in there with KSI, but that elbow was just not the optic that he needed. But let's get back into it.
Huge. Congrats to Wings. You had 2 fierce, entertaining female fights. You had the amazing fight.
One entertaining female fight.
Money, I'm Virus. DK Money dropping Virus.
That was crazy.
And then at the end of the second round, Virus coming back with the KO of his own. And then managing to win the fight from that KO. Incredible. Deji versus Swarms. Deji showing the skills and absolutely.
I also have a Deji analysis video coming up, so expect that soon. Deji analysis and then Assault Poppy analysis as well. And I'll probably make a video just detailing... Oh, actually, no. If I've talked about it here, then I won't make a video detailing the whole Francis Ngannou fight. Or the Francis Ngannou signing, excuse me. No, 300K isn't bad at all. But I just feel like KSI knew that he would be asking a lot for $40, you know? Like, that was a good... for $20, good fight. Good card. But I wouldn't pay $40 for that. I didn't... Well, I did pay the $20, actually. All right, let's get back to it. Every stream, I toe the line between exposing myself for nothing because I didn't do anything. Nice overhand. Oh, that's definitely an elbow. For sure. That's all right. That's clear as day. And the fact that this is what we talk about when we say that KSI, or a lot of people say that KSI is delusional. Look at this. Boom. It's right. He literally put it in the video. That's insane.
I got the KO, but of course, there's controversy with the KO. Did I knock him out with my elbow?
That's clear as day, dude.
Run into my elbow and knock himself out. Did my right hook even connect? Joe Fournier is appealing to the commission.
He should.
The win overturned. So will I get disqualified? Will it be a no contest? Will it remain the same? These are questions that we'll soon know the answer, but I can tell you my truth. I truly believe I hit him with a right hook. Now you gotta remember.
This is where I watched half of this when I was in the gym working out. I truly believe I hit him with an... What do you mean believe? Wade's videos on... I'm sure, dude, yeah, Wade always does a good job. I'll have to watch that after I stream. How do you believe that you hit someone with a hook? First off, you use the B-roll. B-roll shows it clear as day on your own video that you smacked him with your elbow. If this was an MMA fight, best elbow of all time. You could see it. That's what I'm saying. The impact, the head moves when it hits the forearm slash elbow. Hold on. I got to show this. Because I have it here.
Of course, there's controversy with the KO. Did I knock him?
Boom. Right there.
I got the KO. But, of course, there's controversy with the KO. Did I knock him out with my...
Boom. To your point.
Joe Fournier run into my elbow and knock himself out. Did my right
Probably Mo, yeah.
connect? Joe Fournier is appealing...
Okay, well, let's go back up to...
I truly believe I hit him with a right hook. Now, you got to remember, 99% of people have never ever been in a ring, so they don't know what it's like to ever be in a fight. So when I hit him with an overhand and I saw that he was stumbling, I knew it was time to destroy. I knew there was 3 things he was probably going to do. He was either going to put his gloves up and just weather the storm. He was either going to just go for broke and throw some wild punches, or he was going to clinch. And that's one of the reasons why, instead of me just going for broke, going for wild hooks or wild straights,
I hit it with an elbow.
Right to the body, because I knew he wasn't really going to be protecting that. So I managed to connect with the right body, and then he proceeded to clinch me. And at that point, I tried to step back and come through with a hook. And as soon as I came with the hook,
that just clearly missed. That's just clear as day, dude. Like, I don't understand why we're even having this dialogue at all. Maybe I don't even need to watch this video. That right there is clear enough evidence, clear as day, that elbow connected. Not even the elbow. It's like more like talked about like right here on the forearm slash elbow. Because then the hooking motion comes over, boom, catches him like that on an angular type of momentum. Crazy.
Saw him drop on the floor, and that was all she wrote. Now it's crazy because I truly believe that I hit him with a right hook. His face hit my glove, and I followed through and knocked him out. So then when I went over to talk to Slim and Dean the Great and Ade, Slim and Dean the Great whispered in my ear like, nice KO, but I think it was an elbow, bro. Now at that point, I was hella confused because I was...
I'll have to watch both after the stream, I will.
Hit him with my fist. So I went backstage and I saw a replay literally on the ring. From the angle that I could see, it showed that I just threw a right hook and he just dropped. But you can't see if it connects. You just saw a right hook and the camera was this side and he drops and that's it. And then I see another replay, the replay that we've probably all seen, and it looks like I missed my hook and it hits my elbow. So it's a weird one because for me, I truly believe I hit him with a right hook, but the replay is saying otherwise. Now Joe Fournier is trying to say that I intentionally used my elbow to knock him out.
What's going through your mind right now, Joe?
Oh, dude, my overlay is all messed up. Hold on, I gotta fix that. Give me a moment. There it goes. Boom. All right.
It's gone viral. It's all over the world. He hit me with a clean elbow.
Which makes no sense because why would I want to ruin all my hard work to just elbow him?
Yeah, that also doesn't make a lot of sense by JJ because you obviously nobody's expecting you to want to ruin all of your hard work by elbowing him intentionally. Nobody thinks you did it intentionally. What we do think is that technically you weren't tight enough. Do you not have studio mode? On what? OBS? I just kind of roll. I'm new to this streaming stuff. I got to get better at it. Admittedly. But what we do know is that technically, in terms of your mechanics, you weren't tight enough. You went for a hook, you missed, and you knocked him out with an elbow. That's why in the video, I talked about how bad this is that if it were intentional, that would be one thing, right? That would be a whole new level of we could have a conversation about how evil KSI is, blah, 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 all this different type of stuff. But the fact that it was so... such like an untechnical, you know what I mean? Like a sloppy type of hook that you accidentally managed to knock him out with your elbow. It's just a whole new level of bad. It's just a whole new level of messy, of sloppy.
I can understand if Joe Fournier was absolutely obliterating me and then I hit him.
Yeah, I'll look into that after the stream.
I hit him with an elbow to drop him and then I win the fight. But I was literally all over Joe Fournier. If you look at the fight, I was all over him. He hardly threw any punches because I pretty much rocked him in the first 15 seconds with a fast right hook. I mean, a fast right cross to his face. Instantly and up.
Yeah, KSI's technique, I mean, it's still, he utilizes that very wide stance. The technicality, the more I watch him, the more I realize it's less so, where his strengths lie is less so in his technicality. It's kind of more so in his raw athleticism and talent and power. Yeah, is he getting more technical with every single fight? Absolutely. But do I think that he's like, even on the level of a Jake? Probably not. I think he's very much so kind of a guy that will come forward. Because guys like that with power, that's what makes Saul Poppy so unique and so special, is guys like him that have the power of KSI, probably even more so power. They don't really need at first, until they run into someone that's more technical, to be technical. Kind of just come forward, bank on one shot landing, boom, the guy's done, he's out, and that's all she wrote. What KSI's done is he's made it so that he doesn't have to run into someone who's a little bit more... Well, even, I mean, I guess you could say Temper was kind of more technical. But he hasn't fought a guy that's technicality, I should say like this, has been able to kind of trump his power. He hasn't run into a guy that's been able to withstand the pressure early, stay behind his jab, keep his hands up, circle out of his power, away from his power hand, use his footwork well. And so until he runs into that, I don't think we're going to see the crazy amount of progression from KSI that we're all expecting. But he does progress every single fight. In this fight, it was definitely messy. And I think that missed hook will serve to benefit him in the long run because it's going to show him that, hey, I have a lot to work on in terms of accuracy. But yeah, it just not bad. It just leaves a lot to be desired.
His whole demeanor changed, and he became very negative. And it kind of reminded me of like Swarms of Pineda. So yeah, him trying to say that I intentionally used my elbow to knock him out is just ludicrous. And
That is ludicrous.
It's stupid, and I believe most people are on my side in the sense that if I did hit him with my forearm or my elbow, it wasn't intentional. But I mean, fuck me. If I'm knocking people out with my forearm or my elbow, maybe I should be getting into MMA. Maybe I'm in the wrong sport. Nah, I'm kidding. I would go nowhere near MMA, man. I have seen what those guys gotta do and deal with, and I am good. But yeah, with my style of fighting, it's very unorthodox. You know, how many boxers do you see, professional boxers do you see bounce like that with their hands all the way down? Yeah,
It's by the way, that's not a good like that. How many guys do you see doing that? None, because that's not safe. Again, the only reason, and I'm not saying he's not talented, but one of the only reasons that we've seen KSI be so dominant as he has been is because he's faced guys that aren't going to make him pay for wildly coming forward or leaving his hands down like that because he has so much power. I love just seeing your face react to not knowing what you're reacting to. Yeah, I was like, maybe he gets into MMA. I'm assuming you're talking about that reaction.
and I knew Joe was struggling to deal with this style.
I just assume you automatically know what I'm reacting to because we all share a hive mind.
He's just gonna move back, and then I try to rush him
We're all interconnected.
into my face and then knock me out that way. So he was kind of just stuck in the mud, trying to time me when I come in. But because I kept feinting and bouncing, and it looked like I was gonna go in when I didn't, he was just confused and a bit lost essentially. But yeah, round one, did my thing, dominate. I hardly got hit. As you can see, I'm pretty blessed. So round two was when, obviously the incident happened. So, you got me in the body, jab to the face.
Also leaves his head way too exposed when he jabs. He leans off to the right like that, to his right.
So round two was when,
Let's see. Boom, right there. Any other dude that has a basic understanding of timing could hit him with a monstrous hook there. Or even an overhand over the top.
So, you got me in the body, jab to the face. Just, coming in and out of range. Body right to the...
I will give it to him. It's a unique style, but like again, a guy that's not Joe Fournier gonna definitely
Try to go
take advantage of that for sure.
for an overhand there because he was a little stationary. I was like, all right, let me slow it down a little, hitting the jab. So with that, that was, I think, the only shot he hit me with. Jab to my face when I tried to jab him. So at that point, I knew, okay, you're going to try and jab when I jab. So all I did was just make a little adjustment. And when I went to jab him again, I simply just caught his jab while jabbing at the same time. Boom.
Yeah, so I think the rest of the video kind of just talks about the fight. Good. Forward.
I was as good as I was, and then for it to be ruined by a moment like that, at the end of the fight, it puts a whole downer on everything. But yeah, ultimately we'll see what the PBA have to say. I truly don't believe it's going to be a disqualification. I know a lot of haters or Jake Paul fans are gagging or hungry for me to have a disqualification so I can get an L. These guys are just pleading.
That's another thing. It's a good thing that KSI brings up in that, like, there are a lot of Jake Paul fans that really want to see KSI lose. I enjoy KSI a lot, and we've had this weird arc on the channel where I've been criticizing him a lot, but not because I dislike him, because I just think he's said a lot of things that I don't agree with. Straight up and simple. I mean, I hope that this is not, I don't want this to be a turbulent part of his career. I do think it is going to be, because again, we've talked about it, and Balloons, you know this too. It's like endpoint Jake. I don't see him, to your point, doing really anything after that, right? It's kind of just to get one up on Jake, and then he'll probably end up moving on to another area, another field, doing music again. So this puts a very, very big wrench in the Jake fight. If Jake wants to make him if Jake wants to play hard to get, this just gave him a big, big pawn in that whole chess match, which is negotiating for the fight. Because Jake hasn't had this type of controversy. Jake just goes in there, knocks guys out, or loses to Tommy Fury, but also knocks down Tommy Fury. Jake goes in there. He hasn't had really something like this happen. The controversy that Jake has is kind of more healthy, you could argue, and that whenever he has a win, let's track back through his career, right? Like he knocks out Ben Askren. Everyone's like, okay, well, Ben Askren, which is true, is a 40-year-old retired MMA fighter with a bad hip. What makes you think that the third that you could beat someone else? And then he kind of just moves up the ranks, right? Like he goes on to Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley's an MMA fighter. Fight up there. He goes on to Anderson Silva, another MMA fight, and then he fights a boxer. So the knockdown Tyron got against the ropes, that didn't count. Yeah, I guess that's a good. That was the only one. That's a good example. But I just feel like that didn't have the same stick. Like there's something about the way that Jake puts on fights where he's not having that same level of controversy, or the controversy that he has sticks less. And I think part of that is because KSI had to win this convincingly, right? Like nobody really wanted to see this. I mentioned pre-fight about how I thought that if he did anything less than dominate, then he was back against the wall. It's a back against the wall situation for KSI. And so this is going to be, I think, one of the biggest impasses in KSI's boxing career. No, it's definitely not as bad either, yeah. But I think also part of that is just the circumstances surrounding it. Yeah. And so this puts for sure a big wrench in the way, big tree in the road on the path to Jake, because Jake immediately went for a rematch instead of saying it didn't happen. Yeah, that's true too. Jake's just a go-getter, man. Jake gets after it. He doesn't say, I don't believe I landed. Like, what does that even mean? That's a good point. That is a very good point. But regardless, it's going to be interesting for KSI moving forward. I do want to, I might end off the stream here just for today. I have to get out of here a little bit early just because I got to get to Ubering later on. But expect a video coming out probably tomorrow night to tomorrow morning, tomorrow night. Middle of the day. Could be any point over the course of the day, but expect something coming out there. One of the 2 reaction videos or the breakdown videos I have. Without further ado, that's been the stream for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're tuning in after the fact, if you're tuning in live, Balloons, appreciate you. And I'll see you guys in the next one.